job is to just do, oh yes, we're now recording, is to do the introductions here for you. And so tonight, we are going to have presentations from Dean Bowles, from Nicole Perrant, and from Darren Muma. We hope to answer as many questions as we can. We will be monitoring your questions as you provide them to us in the chat function on your screen, and also pause for some questions that anybody who puts their hands up can ask during those breaks. The meeting is being recorded so that we have available for anybody who needs to review the conversations that we have. We will be sharing our slide deck at the end of the presentation. And we would ask that everybody, as you can see, take their picture off the screen, because when we're recording, it makes it for a much cleaner look if you are looking at the recorded version. So thank you for attending. We've got very good attendance, and I'm really pleased about that. We do believe at Swim Ontario that we should be doing these sort of presentations, not just in the midst of a crisis, but on a regular basis, and do intend to at least have quarterly club president meetings. We recognized at this time that it was really important for us to provide this opportunity to give you information and an update about the restrictions that are now in place, and to help you in the future, or help you communicate to your members and to your athletes about the rationale for some of the decisions that have been made, and the path forward as we go back to training and then eventually to racing. So just as before we start, and I think there's one more slide there, Nicole, just with the title. And before we start, so yes, we're being recorded. I will be monitoring your questions coming in on the chat, and there will be a question period at the end of each topic, so that we can make sure that we've been clear and that you have the information you need going back. That's it. Okay, Dean, over to you.
Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for making the time. And we know that it's been, not the way we wanted to kick off a new year, that's for sure, with what we're faced with. But anyways, it is what it is. Hopefully we're going to be in a better position soon. And so I wanted to just go through a bit of the business of the high performance exemption that had to be reinstated. The provincial government, most of you are probably very familiar with what has taken place, and over the last 22 plus months with the provincial high performance regulation that was put in by the province of Ontario to allow athletes who are on track to the Olympics or Paralympics. And so we exercised it a while ago, pre-Tokyo, and it seemed to come out quite well in the favor of Canadian sport, with successful summer games going on. They've had to reinstate it. We had a little bit longer runway, 27 months to be exact, so Paris. So that allowed us for some, I guess, some latitude or some stretching of things. So right here is just the exact language where the exemption is. And I know in the early spots, there was some confusion around these elite sport leagues. And, but that sort of got sorted out, and well, somewhat sorted out. It's not sorted out for the OUA yet, but definitely understanding that the national sport organizations are the ones who hold the sort of the criteria and the ability to put in place the eligibility list. So next slide. So here's a little bit where we're at. Obviously, we're in step 2 modified. It came in place in January 5th. They announced things were going to take place January 3rd. We had been asking about leading in, knowing that things were heating up a little bit with the Omicron variant. We'd asked our various sport partners around where the exemption, would it be reinstated? Is it in place? Would it still allow for summer sport, even though summer sport's still far away? And we really didn't get a clear answer on it, other than if it had to be, it would be. So we had to start moving quickly on it, because we knew that many clubs would want to be able to have the conversation with their facility. So we posted a memo on January 4th to try and explain the criteria. And the criteria was a work in progress in a sense. Just so you know that we did have every intention between Swimming Canada and ourselves to have an expanded list compared to the one prior to Tokyo. But we didn't know really how to go about it, because it's quite simple and clear when you really go towards high performance definition. But when you start to stretch it, it becomes a little more challenging. And so we had to work through that process of it. So all that information was given. We communicated directly to the club contacts and to the head coaches and key facilities. This was probably a period of time that we had a lot of interaction to parents, to coaches, to club board leadership people, to our facilities. And so in a lot of ways, we had a connection going on. And as I said, we collaborated quite well with Swimming Canada on a daily basis during this process. Next slide. So just to go through it again, we had a 27-month runway to Paris, as I put it. First and foremost, we were looking at the 22 trials. Qualifiers included senior and junior components. Lucky thing was they had a long course standard and a short course standard in place, so that made it quite clear and easy. When we moved to the Canadian Junior Championships, because that was somewhat of the, we'll call it the next generation or a layer of athletes we wanted to have in the water for a number of reasons. They only had a long course standard. There was no short course standard. And the reason was they hadn't put one in place. And we had to do a little bit of stick handling around that to get to where what was consistent from how did they establish the short course standards for the trials. And we had to work our way through that. So that was an ongoing process. We used the performance window of May 1st to December 31st, because we felt that a good majority of these swimmers did have opportunity to race. Not all, maybe not all the ideal chances. And we landed on a date that for the age pieces or age group championships, that would be at the age of January 5th of 22, just to try and create some sort of, I'll call it ease of criteria, but one to just keep track of and to be somewhat, I'll call it fair, or maybe equitable, or maybe those things don't come into play during a time like this. And then the 22 trials qualifiers, we did go back and look at the qualification period, which stretched out to January 1st of 2019. So it was a process. That's why the various versions came into place. We were monitoring our numbers. We really were making sure that we weren't going overboard. And I'll have to tell you that after this is all behind us, we're going to have to go through and understand really what is high performance, re-examine that, but remind people high performance is very, very high. It's not this. This isn't, a lot of this is not high performance. I hate to hurt people's feelings, but it really isn't. But we took the approach that we were going to try and get as many athletes in the water, eligible to be in the water to continue to train. All the recognized performances came through the Swimming Canada ranking. So next slide. And just to give you a bit of a picture, we have 405 swimmers that are on the eligibility list. I believe there's 383 that are actually currently actively swimming. It took in 69 clubs. And then what really caught my eye was the 23 facilities. There might be one or two extra in there, but 23 facilities that remained open and had wanted to support their club program, which is pretty important. Just to give a reference from the 2020 Olympic trials, or the exemption that was put in place there, we're about 4 times the number. I know a lot of people want us to go deeper and so on and so forth, but that would have really, like I said, stretched this whole performance piece, and we didn't want to be viewed in any other way that we were doing it in a responsible manner. So this is where we're at, and we do have some other, we do have some, we'll call it restrictions, and we'll get onto that, I think, in the next slide. Or well, maybe not next slide. Maybe this is where the questions are. Are we at questions right now?
Sorry, Dean. No, there aren't any questions.
No questions?
But this
Okay.
would be a good time for folks to put them on the chat flag at the bottom of your screen. Just move your mouse around and you'll find the chat marker. And if you have any questions, we want you to be able to answer the questions that you're getting from your parents, your coaches, concerns you have. No, okay, let's go. Oh, Robert Gigi, have questions been raised about the numbers from the provincial government?
No, not at this time.
No. In other words, that means that they haven't complained about how many we have in the water.
No.
So we reached the right, hopefully we reached a good balance.
Where some, I mean, facilities could have an issue, and I mean, I think each one of them have implemented some restrictions or some caps in some situations, and I think the other is the other sports, the other PSOs, they're trying to find their ground. I know that we hear about baseball, and they have everybody able to be indoors and training and everything, or whatever that is. This is what I hear. We're not baseball, we are swimming, and we have the ability to do an objective thing.
Somebody says the levels may not be high performance, but we appreciate the lower standards. So that's a thank you.
Yeah, that was an intent.
Question, some swimmers are listed twice on the exemption list. Would that be on the most recent list, Dean, or has that been corrected?
Well, we think we've caught them all. I know that Stu McLean, I had him scouring these lists every single day, and we know we caught some. There was always, who represented who and who is the coach of record, and there's things changing all along. But we did catch some from doubles. So I think the version right now is without.
Well, no, this individual does say it's a recent list, so we can take a look at that.
All right. Well, we can get at it. It really doesn't make any difference in a sense. We do in the scheme of things, but if it, I really don't want to put any more versions out there, because I think that'll become a bit suspect. So we leave it as is.
Next question: are any university facilities open for high performance?
I believe University of Waterloo is. I believe that University of Ottawa is just opened up, I think, this week. I'm not sure about Guelph. That was the unfortunate thing on the okay, so Guelph, thanks, Shanti. That was the unfortunate part around the OU not being part of that elite sport league, that it hurt our facilities, because a lot of our clubs do access those facilities. So yeah.
Right. Okay, that's it for now, Dean.
Excellent. Thank you.
So it's now my turn. Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to quickly go through return to swimming and return to competition information that we've recently published. So on January 4th, we introduced version 19 of our return to safe operations. That was then quickly updated on January 7th with version 19.5, which basically had all of the COVID screening and isolation and reporting protocols updated to reflect the changes that the provincial government made during the holiday break. And basically, we just re-implemented some mask usage that we've had in the past, so a little bit more strict mask usage, especially when they're not in the water. Essentially, you're wearing your mask at all times unless you're in the water, and preferable even when you're doing outdoor activities as well. reflecting the 3-meter physical distancing that the government has currently in the regulations, especially when you are en masse, even outdoors. That is in the regulations, so that is included in the all of the documentation that was updated. And we also went back to our lane capacity restrictions in order to basically help with that 3-meter distancing that has to occur when the athletes are pausing during sets or at the beginning or end of a workout. So we wanted to maintain that 3-meter distancing. In order to do that, we reduced the numbers for lane capacity. So basically that information has been up on the website since January 7th. It is in place during this modified step 2 that the government is currently in. We're hoping that, we will have more information as to what it will look like once we exit out of modified step 2. But until we know what that information is, we cannot give what it will look like. So we're just waiting for that information. And then, oh, sorry.
Yep, keep going. Are you doing the racing too?
I am, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
So the return to racing. So we've paused racing for everyone for the month of January, waiting to find out what the information will be from the government as we exit out of modified step 2. That pausing of racing also applies to the athletes that are currently training under the Provincial HP Exemption. So all of the events that were sanctioned or were sanction applications were all canceled in the system. And we're looking at, what it will look like for February and March and waiting for that information from the government. So currently we do have no travel outside of the province until further notice. So we're just not advising people to go out of province. And so just making sure that everybody understands that. So there's not much to report here other than we are in a holding pattern, and hope to go back sometime in February or March. And we don't know what it will look like, but we assume that there will be some staged approach as we go back into competitions. Any questions?
Okay, Dean, I have a question for you first. How does Swim Canada propose to help reconcile the gap in training between Ontario and other open provinces such as BC and Alberta, with Ontario historically being a significant source of swim talent? This seems to be a topic that needs to be addressed. Time standards in the short term is a question.
Okay. How to address it? I honestly don't know how we're going to address it. This is a provincial matter. It's a health and safety matter. There's not much we can do about that. Now, to say about standards, I'm sure Swimming Canada will be considering some things if it leads into more of the summer period. But I think in the immediate that we have to go with what we have in place. And unfortunately, it's not great. Won't be good for everybody. It will be good for some, but it won't be good for everybody. But it may be in the longer term, there may be some dispensation or some consideration towards the summer if it's felt to be we'll call it an unfair situation.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, will travel potentially return at the same time as in-province competition? And this is recognizing that some clubs are closer to out of province than in.
Well, I think we have to look at the situation and see what the province announces. I mean, we're certainly hopeful and that it does, but it's until we know what the exit out of modified step 2 will be, it's difficult to say at this time.
So Nicole, I think I would say just as another way to put it is the limits on racing are the province's limitations. We have an opportunity for some training, but not for racing. So if they lift the racing, then we can look at what that means at that time. Is that fair, Nicole?
It is, yeah.
Thanks. Okay, on to the next.
Dean?
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. I'm just reading all the different comments coming in. I'm getting distracted. Okay. Yeah, so now here's the question around provincial competitions and everything. And what we're looking at is what is taking place in what we used to call the winter segment. Now is going to probably be maybe leaning towards what will be a winter spring segment. We did put up our competition schedule, what we saw things happening and where it was going to be and everything else like that. We've been in touch with our key facilities to get a handle on what their read or their temperature check is, where they feel there's openings that if we have to shift dates and things like that, what's available. So we are working with them in that regard. We had a really good lead up until Christmas with the conversations with the facilities that we were going to be able to have a pretty close near normal winter session. However, things that changed. But the good thing is I think the facilities have much better understanding of how things are working. They're going to take their lead from their public health. So right now we are in a bit of holding pattern, waiting for a bit more information, a little bit of the information coming from Swimming Canada. What are they doing with their properties in April? Definitely, I'm sure the information will be made more public come the 20th as they're hosting a carded coaches and athletes call that will probably show the way of what's taking place. Right now we have things such as if there is a trials scheduled for April in the place that it is right now, we need to think about, can we host a swim meet in the sense that it helps our best athletes to move forward? Do we have the ability to offer an opportunity? We have a Canada Games selection process in place. So these are all the little questions that we need to ask and to answer. And so right now we have some scenarios that we're working on. And our intent is maybe by the week of the 24th, next week, we'll have much more information. Depends on what the provincial government comes out with, what we think will be the return of in water. We have to be aware that some swimmers haven't swum since mid-December, and they'll need a period of time to return to be able to get into racing form. I don't know if there'll be ample enough time, even with pushing some events around a bit or the dates back a bit and things like that for extra qualification. These are all unknowns. We don't even know what our capacity will look like. So these are discussions that we have to have, one with the facilities and then with their hosts. We have our clubs who are going to be hosts. We have to make sure that they're on track. So we have a lot of conversations that have to take place. It's just a moment in time that we just don't have quite the answers. We have ideas and thoughts, but not the answers that will help put everything in place. So hopefully in the very short period, we will.
Okay, Dean, there's a few questions here or comments, some of them. BC has separated youth sports under 22 from general fitness. Has Swim Ontario considered or worked with other youth sports leagues to get the same consideration made in Ontario? This would be a proactive approach by sports organizations to work with the Minister of Sport.
Well, that's the way BC works. BC sport works. This is not how it works. And everybody wants to put it on Swim Ontario. And that's great that we will do everything we can, but it is where sport lands in Ontario, and not always represented in the manner that we would think be best. there's no reason why recreation facilities shouldn't be open for physical and mental well-being, but we are living here in Ontario, and that's the rule that we have to go by. So to suggest anything otherwise, those suggestions have been made, but without very much success.
Just a suggestion here, thanks Dean, a suggestion here that travel be limited to a distance traveled, not simply between provinces. So I guess that's for consideration when that comes up. Yeah. Given the impact to continuous training from majority of athletes, will qualifying standards for the various Swim Ontario meets be expanded? For example, festivals to include B standard.
We haven't gone that deep yet. We need to find out where we're going to look at it, and then from what the machine tells us, or not Nicole, you're not the machine, but you work like a machine. But what the machine that she works with spits out what we feel are active qualifiers. The numbers show pretty solid full competition, and we're going to have to work around capacity. But if there is an opening that can be considered, those things are always considered. Maybe not where you want it to be, but they are considered.
You may have answered this already, but just to reiterate, even if we come out of the restrictions on January 26, what is going to happen with festival champs and the provincial champs? The swimmers that are qualified but not on the high performance exempted list have not been able to train.
Exactly. We realize that, and that's why on our scenario building that we may have to make some critical decisions of how we proceed, and giving enough time for those that haven't, hopefully a little bit of time, extra time for those that haven't been able to train. So we have to know where the starting point is, and the starting point is when the majority can return, or we can get to where we were pre-Christmas. That's the starting point, and then we can start figuring out, okay, this is where the next point of that we can work towards, and hopefully availability, is some of these facilities take on other events as well. So we're going to be in a bit of a high elbows trying to get into our spots.
Dean, you mentioned, I think you mentioned capacity of the facilities as one of the variables, and that links into the fact of the question here: is there an assessment about how many fewer are qualified than usually would be the case, I think, with the suggestion that the standards be lowered?
Yeah, we'll look at that.
Okay, good for now. On to the next slide.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for those questions. I think this is Darren's.
Yep, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So just 4 quick points surrounding insurance: that the general liability policy and the club directors and officers policy will be posted on the new website as soon as it's up and running, which will be in the next few weeks. As last year, Swim Ontario has asked both legal counsel and our broker to review the insurance policies, and that review will be posted on the new website. A couple of questions from the past to clarify: there is no coverage for COVID contagion, but there is coverage for legal defense costs should a club be served with a COVID claim. But there are maximums on that. So a single claim of $50,000 for legal defense costs for a COVID claim, and a $250,000 aggregate. So that means that across the board, the most the insurance company will cover if there are a number of legal defense claims is $250,000. And that's divided between the 4 provinces that share the insurance policy. So there is some legal defense coverage cost for COVID claims, but not a lot. And this is the best COVID defense coverage claim available on the market. So that's where we're at, which is why we're continually telling clubs and registrants to make sure that they strictly follow the provincial guidelines in Swim Ontario, provincial COVID safety policy and Swim Ontario policy.
Okay, thank you, Darren. Is that the last slide? I think so. Now I'll just wait for questions to come in on insurance, but, oh, and here's one right now. Is it Swim Ontario's recommendation that clubs carry their own D&O coverage in addition, not COVID specific? Directors and officers.
We've always advised clubs that if they wish to have additional insurance coverage, that they're responsible for doing their due diligence on whether or not they feel that extra insurance is worth the extra premium. We can't make the legal recommendation that you either should or shouldn't carry extra insurance.
Mr. Egan, did you want to ask a question? Nope, somebody's come off mute. Okay, one other thing, I think that's the last slide, right, Dean?
Yeah.
Okay, what I did want to mention as a closing comment or piece of information is that not all of you may realize that this is Swim Ontario's 100th year of business. And come September, it will be our 100th anniversary. And that is certainly something to celebrate. And we do intend to plan for some celebrations, which will raise profile as well. And which we all want to do at the time that we're recruiting additional swimmers. So you can look forward to hearing more about our shared 100th anniversary. There is a question here. This will be your last chance, folks, to get your questions in. Thank you for all your hard work, and we certainly appreciate the expanded HP list, but some form of communication from Swim Ontario directly to all swimmers would go a long way to let the other 95+% in many cases know they matter. We are doing what we can as a club to engage swimmers. However, we would certainly welcome positive messaging from Swim Ontario. There you go, Dean.
Yeah, very good suggestion. We'll go to the corner office and figure out what we can do.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of agreement with that. We're getting, I'm getting messages. Here's maybe a question. What can you review any conversation Swim Ontario is leading? Just a minute. Okay, sorry. This one disappeared on me as things bumped up, so I'm just looking for it. Is leading with the government to encourage getting our kids back in the pool or staying in the pool.
I think I have weekly calls with our provincial consultant, our ministry consultant, and working with our, obviously working with some of our key facilities that we have a very good relationship with, because they sometimes have a bit closer touch in a lot of ways, and so it's a constant. It is a constant, and I know a lot of people think that we can do a lot more, but under the conditions that we're faced with, it's pretty difficult. And we do cross paths with all our other sport or provincial sport organizations, and same thing. A lot of it is frustration, same frustration that everybody is feeling. And I have my own personal view of how good swimming and the swimming environment is, and a potential protectant from transmission and things like that, but it really doesn't. I don't have a science team to actually come up with that. That would be for the government to do, but we know that may not take place.
The thing that, this is Annabelle, the thing that I have to remind myself, as important as I believe swimming is, that there are something like 56 sports funded by the national government, by Sport Canada, and they're all in the same boat. They may some of them be more dangerous, some of them be less dangerous in the COVID environment, but the government, both governments have to make decisions that are general, not specific. They could never keep up to specific separation across sports. We do our best to advocate, but we have to just face the reality of this being a very big challenge. Got a couple more for you, Dean. Mm-hmm. There was an earlier question comment, maybe I missed it, as to how clubs are faring financially and if anyone is needing help. Now, that's a poll. I don't know if we've ever done that kind of poll to find out what the current situation is for clubs.
Well, a lot of the staff have had interaction with clubs, whether it's a coach or whether it's been a board member or even an officials representative. So there's always been conversations going on. I wouldn't say it's covering all the programming. If we hear something, then we will at least have a conversation and address it to the best of our ability. But we haven't gone further out. We know that there are other surveys going on, but we have not done that.
So I think there's an invitation. If your club does want to have a conversation, be sure to get in touch with us. Dean, with provincial comps looming, will we follow a similar return to competition plan that was in place in the fall? This limited clubs to in-house, then regional meets, and some clubs are at a disadvantage because of the pool they swim in, so would not be able to make qualifying times.
Well, the intent is to get, and I refer to as near normal, as quickly as possible. Because every step of the way through this whole process, we learn more, we know more, but a lot of it, we just need to understand what is going to come down the pipe from the provincial government and what our facilities are going to understand. And then if we can, I don't want to use the word fast track, but if we can, our intent is to get things rolling along. It is just as important for us for many reasons to see a lot more racing going on, a lot more swim meets taking place, swim meets with capacity, swim meets being near normal. But we just, until we get that clear picture, we'll have to do it in the manner that we've been doing. And I would suggest that, whether you agree or not agree, we've done it in a responsible manner. We do get commented by over the period of time from various public health units that have had the opportunity to see our safety plans, see your club's safety plans, and the responses have come back quite favorable. Does that get us on with the business at hand and get our swimmers swimming? Not as much as maybe we would like to, but the intent is definitely there to move things along when we know we can move along. And so we may have a slightly different approach, but I would say that it would be a much more progressive one, if at all possible.
There's a few more here. So, and I'm so glad that people are asking these questions. We want to answer them and clear up things. So when will the updated policy come out? 4 to 6 or 4 maximum per swim lane training? We are trying to plan for the 31st back in the water date.
Okay. Well, all this, what's today's date? 18th? We've got still 3 more days in the week, and we always do things over the weekend, and then when we have more information. So it'll be an ongoing process on that. And it comes down to the facilities as well. So I understand people are trying to plan for the 31st. That's being quite optimistic. That's good. I'm glad, hopefully you're right.
Yeah. We have, this is a comment, agree with the others. With all due respect to our high performance athletes, our sport is struggling to attract new swimmers and retain young high level swimmers who are seeing goals in training disappear before their eyes. We won't have high performance athletes 5 years from now if we don't figure out a way to get these 2 things back. So that's a comment. Bottom line, how many clubs has Swim Ontario lost?
I think we may have had 2 that have that either have paused or maybe 1 that actually said they're not back in business. Darren, you might know better than I do, but I think that was what I had understood.
If I remember correctly, it was 2 in 2020. One of those has reaffiliated, and there are 2 this year that have said they're pausing for this season. So less than 5 out of 145.
Okay, thank you. I'm still not clear what is required to allow teams to travel out of province. Exit from step 2, is that the question? And I think the answer I heard before was it's going to depend on what the rules are at that time. Is that fair, Dean?
Well, one of the things we also have to check with our insurer. You know, as much as we follow public health and we follow the government, we also check with our we also check with our insurer.
Okay. Is there a list of grants that we can apply to help cover costs? We have an Olympic hopeful that would love more pool time, but with our club being small and financial position, COVID has put us, and the financial position COVID has put us in, we would appreciate if there's anything available so that we can better support her. I do believe that a lot of clubs have had success with Jumpstart. Correct, Dean?
Yes, that's one. There's been some of the Trillium grants have been, some club, not everybody has it, you know, they can apply for it. And we did, and Ann and Christy did put on a seminar on that. We'll make, you know what, we'll look into what some of the resources or what the links are regarding of these grants. We can look in and see if we can put that in part of this presentation, if that might help. So,
Dean, I have 10 more messages here, but
okay.
But we haven't lost folks, so I think we should keep going down them, right?
Sure.
Okay, just before lockdown, there was some work going on to align Swim Ontario's required screening with the screenings posted on the province's website. Will those procedures be aligned before we reopen?
I'm going to turn that to either Darren or Nicole. More in tune with the screening process.
They have been updated January 7th. They've been aligned with the province January 30th updates.
Okay, thank you. Sorry if this has been asked. I don't think it has. We have a beginner program with some kids 5 and 6, and they're wondering, I jumped here. There was a rule about no in-water instruction from coaches. This wasn't a rule in the fall, and why is it a rule now?
Well, it became a rule with Omicron. I mean, that was the literature and data that we were receiving from all the sources. So that was just a responsible manner.
Yeah. Okay. There's a really nice one. I think we should take a step back and acknowledge what Swim Ontario and the clubs have collaboratively done with the kids and high performance athletes in the water, something as much as feasibly possible these last 2 years, and safely. It's been hard, but it's been worthwhile. Thank you to everyone putting time into this cause. Thank you.
Yeah,
and
well, it's definitely, it has been a full team effort from what we do to all the clubs and their leadership and responsible manner, and to the facilities. Like I said, you see, having 23 facilities remaining open for the swimmers who are eligible. That's pretty impressive, because the last time I think we had 4 or 5. And so quite reassuring. I think as we come out of this, I think there will be a good appetite to move things forward at a reasonable rate.
And a question here, going back to the adults in the water with young kids. The question is, isn't there a safety risk with young kids and no adult in the water? And it's probably because it can't be done safely because of COVID. Perhaps it can't be done at all. That's...
Yeah. That would be the way. That's how we interpret it, and we do have a strong relationship with the Life Saving Society. I think that's where they were going as well. So probably those in pool lesson programs weren't going to be taking place.
Right. I think I apologize to anybody if I have missed your question or misinterpreted it, but I think I've reached the end here, Dean.
Super.
A final one here about doing a survey of clubs to see about the impact of COVID after this round, and we can certainly talk about doing that again. Okay, thank you very much, folks, for engaging. Any final words, Dean?
No, thanks very much, everybody. Hang in there. That's all the words. We need that young kid from Peterborough who does that boost of the team. You know, go for the W. You know, so you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, just stay tight on things, guys. I'm sure everybody. We're going to get there, and we're going to come out as best we can. So. Thanks for all your efforts.
And lots of thank yous coming in here, Dean.
Yes, I see that.
Fantastic. Yeah, great.
Super.
Okay.
We'll be there. We'll get there.